Dirty Scrap Podcast.
Hi Matt, how are you? How you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and now that we are here, both of us, I'm even better, and I really appreciate that you're reaching out to be part of the podcast. Just as a brief introduction about the podcast, this is Dirty Scrap, and the idea of this podcast is to get into, to dive into the sustainability point of view of every industry, and we are more related to the aluminum industry that is very, very good, let's say, from the point of view that you will give us a lot of input about the EVs and electrification and everything. And this aluminum industry is growing a lot because of this trend that we have right now from the point of view of being more sustainable and have alternative sources of energy that we can use on the daily basis. So thanks a lot for being here with us, and let's dig in. So how's everything so far?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm really happy to be on your show.
Oh, thank you so much. And well, I know that you are the founder of the Global Energy Transformation Institute, but you have an amazing career, and you've been involved in so many different, let's say, approaches for this, let's say, electrification of the nation. So before we jump into all the technical details and everything that is, related to the EVs and what we can expect from now on, from right now to the future, I want to know a little bit about you. I know you have you are on the business administration, you have marketing experience, and you have like this consultant experience as well, helping different industries and companies. And you have also some relationship with the governments, giving some advice, so many different topics. But before digging in that, let me know about you, about your path, about your journey into this industry. So let me know about you.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working as a management and business consultant for 35 years, and I've worked with companies in many different industries, from food to real estate to construction and packaging, and a large number of industries. So I have quite a wide experience
Yeah, I can tell.
from 30 years back, and I've been working as a project manager for the implementation of business systems in
Mhm.
large companies. So I
Okay.
know something about computers and software applications as well. I think it's to a large extent based on this broad experience and relatively wide range of experience from a wide range of industries that I have been able to put together a relatively big picture with many details of the transformation to electric vehicles.
Wow. And how did you get into this industry, specific industry, and created your institute? Why is your focus? Why you started like getting more and more interest in this approach?
Well, in 2003, I read a book about the issue of peak oil. The forecast that oil production would peak globally, and that oil production would then go down after the peak. And I
Right.
realized at that point that if we experience, if the global society experiences this event and the aftermath of that event, it will be a huge challenge for countries to keep their transportation systems going and to make sure that society continues to work as in the normal way. And I realized that type of event would have a huge impact on economic growth and the affluence of people, because many jobs are almost all jobs are in different ways dependent on transportation,
Definitely.
deliveries of materials, components, parts, and finished products from raw material sources over to mechanical engineering companies and to assembly plants, and to further over to customers who use them.
Right.
So all of that depends on transportation on a daily basis. And I realized that if we have less oil, we will have to we will experience very severe consequences of that. So it's and I started to investigate how could we make ourselves less dependent on oil, and I realized that changing transportation to alternative fuels would be the only realistic way, and electricity is the only fuel that can be produced in large enough quantities for this change to be, or the electricity is the only renewable fuel that can be produced in large enough quantities to replace oil. So fortunately, the peak in oil production has not occurred yet, but we are discussing the opportunities, and in Europe and in California, governments have already made decisions to change transportation systems to electric vehicles, and we need to prepare for that. So my studies and my preparations from 20 years back now are paying off because of this, and not because of the original problem I started to explore.
Right. And I understand that the main focus of your institute is to help to the industry, or to help in accelerating the global transition to clean and renewable energies, right? How is this transition moving forward? Because in the last, I will say the last decades, even less, the last 5 years, being the approach on every industry is like, okay, let's go sustainable, let's go green, let's do this transition as fast as we can, but it's not that easy. So how we can get into this transition in the best way? I think people like Elon Musk and Tesla companies are helping a lot, using a vehicle that is something that we know very well, so we can understand how the electricity point of view works and how we can expand in so many different directions. But saying that, how is this transition going right now, and how are those challenges that we are facing?
Well, on the face of it, it looks as if the change is going at top speed. But in reality, it's not going that fast, because it's a huge transition. And in the United States, there are 285 million cars and heavy vehicles. And in Europe, there are 280 million. And right now, in the United States, you have about 2% electric cars out of those, and
just 2%.
something like that. I haven't looked up the figure lately, but in Europe we have about 3%, and well, of course, in California, in some other states, the percentage is much bigger, but overall in the United States, it's a fairly low percentage, and and in Europe it's 3%, and in the area of heavy vehicles, it's much less than 1%.
Right.
So in some countries like Sweden, where I am, we're approaching 1%, but we also have two big truck manufacturers here in Sweden that really promote electric trucks, and they have made Sweden one of their most important test markets for electric trucks. So still, the change to electric trucks is going much slower than the companies expected, because here in Europe, people have, or the EU has decided to ban the sales of petrol and diesel cars from 2035, and they have decided to rapidly phase out diesel trucks, starting immediately, basically, and from 2030 through 2035 and 2040, it's they're going to decrease the amount of emissions that are allowed from new trucks. So they will force and they will fine automotive companies if they don't sell enough electric truck to get the average level of emissions down to the EU levels that they have decided. So that's a very big there will be very big fines for automotive companies.
It's a huge step.
But still the sales of electric cars and electric trucks are increasing rapidly, but from a very low level. So we're seeing, and nobody has experienced a situation in any country where the majority of all cars or the majority of all trucks are electric. So people haven't realized how much electricity will be needed. And that's one of my main points, that huge investments will be needed in power infrastructure, in power
Definitely.
plants, in power grids, from transmission grids to local grids, and in also we need to. There's a big need for training of people who are going to
Oh yeah.
participate, who are going to work in this big change with the different aspects, like expanding power infrastructure. Where does it need to be expanded, and how much? And who's going to make the investments? Who's going to take the risk? A lot of these things haven't even started to become planned yet.
But this is a very interesting topic because, from my point of view, and as you just said, looks like everything is moving very fast, mostly on the regulation point of view and on the government demands that they really want to have as much as fast as they can electrical vehicles everywhere. And if we talk, for example, about California, they are planning to have by 2025 almost 100% of the vehicles that be electrical vehicles. But they have like power blackout. They don't have enough electricity, but they want to go in this direction. And I don't understand how we can go in that direction without having a very, let's say, complete plan to use the power that we have and increase the power that we don't have right now in order to get into that position. Now, saying that, in the European market is a little bit different. I think United States is going in this direction just a few years ago. The European market went through this path years ago, and I think it's easier, right? But saying that, it's concerned to me that we don't have enough power to get into those positions, but we are putting a lot of effort in this. How it is possible that we are not getting into the right plan, and what are those energy sources that we will see in order to let's say fulfill these goals? Because at the end we don't have nuclear power anymore, and we should be thinking about nuclear power, but we are thinking about solar and wind and these windmills that they are not easy, they are kill a lot of birds, and it's complicated. So what is your approach? What do you think about it?
Well, I've advocated for a number of years the idea that there's a need for a program similar to the Apollo program in order to
Right.
manage this change. I wrote a book published in 2009 called Global Energy Transformation. That's why I called my institute Global Energy Transformation Institute,
Mhm.
by the way. And in that book, I argued that to change transportation systems on a large scale, there will be a need for not only new vehicles and new fuels, there will be a need for a huge number of different activities, like for electric vehicles. There will be a need for power infrastructure. We have different levels of power grids, like transmission grids, regional grids, distribution grids locally.
Mhm.
There will be a need for digitization of grids, not only reinforcement of the capacity, but also to digitization. And we
Right.
need charging facilities, and probably not only stationary charging. We may need, in order to charge all vehicles, we may need electric roads, wireless charging roads, and
How easy? How easy is to go in that direction? Because this sounds like the future, like 50
yeah,
years from now, something like that. How easy is to get into those steps?
yeah. Well, it seems to be very difficult for decision makers. Now President Kennedy seems to have realized immediately in 1961, when he challenged the nation to send a man to the moon, bring him safely back to Earth,
Right.
that a big budget would be needed to do that. And he gave the assignment to NASA that they should organize this, and NASA immediately started to plan the entire program. Like, we need rockets, we need space capsule, we need moon lander, we need a launch pad, We need a crawler
Right.
to take the rocket from the vehicle assembly building to the launch pad. We need the vehicle assembly building to be that was one of the biggest buildings on Earth at the time and still is. And we need a space center in Houston, and we need all of these things, and we need computer technology that wasn't available at the time, and all of these things had to be developed before for the end of the decade when the launch would be made. So
Right.
they started this program on a number of different fronts to develop new technologies that would be needed for the entire program, spacesuits and all kinds of things. And with this change, it's not only about sending one man to the moon, bring him
No.
back, but it's about changing hundreds of millions of vehicles everywhere. And all those vehicles, once they're electric, they will have to be charged regardless of where they are. So
Definitely.
if a lot of people in the summer go to the beach, as they do, they will have some of them will have to be able to charge on the beach. And if all cars are electric, fairly large number will have to be charged at the beach. At skiing resorts, like in Sweden, we have skiing resorts that are located, say 100 miles from the nearest town or city. You drive there, you have to charge at the resort to go back.
Right.
And if 100,000 people go to the resort, a lot of them by car, you need to have a huge number of charging, and you need to have chargers, and you need to have a huge amount of electricity available there for people to be able to go back. And that's only for a very short space of time in the winter.
Exactly. And
So
it's a huge challenge.
yeah. So and we've recently done, or we're in the process of doing a project on a logistics area in a town called Helsingborg here, where 80% of all fruit and vegetables that are imported into Sweden, they pass through. So there are 1,400 trucks every day coming to this area to either to unload or load fruit and vegetables and other types of food to be distributed to other parts of Sweden. So and those, if all those 1,400 trucks would be electric, they would need huge amounts of electricity. And imagine charging one truck requires more electricity. Well, at semi-fast charging for trucks like 300 kilowatts, it's charging one truck at that capacity is more than 200 washing machines or 200 heat pumps that we use here in Sweden. So it's to keep these trucks rolling, there's a very big need for charging capacity on a very high speed. So that's and people in the industry, in the transportation industry, they're discussing now, we need megawatt chargers. Well, 1 megawatt charger would require 10% of the power capacity used at this huge logistics area at peak loads, at peak load times in the summer, when this area uses the most electricity. So that is a huge amount of electricity that's needed, well, for a very short time to charge only one truck. So it's a really, really big challenge to electrify huge fleets of trucks. And that's why it would be an advantage to have electric roads, because if you could charge while driving, you could charge at a slow speed. You wouldn't have to charge all power in 20 minutes to keep the trucks rolling, and not to have to stop for long periods to fill them up. You could charge them at slow speed, like you do at night with a Tesla at home. You can charge at low capacity, and you can do that all day long as you drive along motorways, highways, and so on. And you also need smaller batteries, because you do most of your charging, or you'd get most of your electricity from the motorways ways or
Right.
electric road system. But that would need, I mean, it would take a decade to build a big network of electric
Yeah.
roads across the US
Right.
or across Europe, perhaps more than a decade.
Oh
And
yeah,
those are
definitely.
new technologies, like the Apollo program, all the technologies that were developed there and perfected in different ways to make it possible to do the missions.
Right.
It would these technologies are new and they're fairly expensive, but I believe if you look at the figures that that electric roads will be an important piece of the puzzle if we
Right.
want to change a large share of our vehicles to electric.
Right. But let me put it in that way, because this is a very interesting approach that I never thought about it. I was always thinking about, nuclear power and the infrastructure that we will need in order to charge all these vehicles is crazy, and we will need a lot of areas, and people will stop for like 20, 30 minutes to charge the vehicles, and maybe we will have a long line and blah blah blah. But this approach is way different, but the investment and the technology, come on, I mean, it's going to be huge, and the challenge is not easy. Now, saying that, electricity, or let's say energy, the energy industry is the industry that create more CO2 emissions right now, right? But we
Yes.
want to electrify everything because we want to reduce the CO2 emissions. So for me, it's a little bit complicated to understand why we have this contradiction, why we are not, and I know that, renewable energies can be like the solution, but even though we will not have enough power from those energies to fill it up 100% electrical vehicles in one country. So what is the approach? How we can approach in this direction when we have this, let's say, duality?
Well, we will primarily need to expand the generation of electricity through resources that don't create emissions of
Right.
CO2. So nuclear power, but also to some extent wind turbines and solar
Mm-hmm.
would have to be the primary choices over like coal or oil fueled power
Right.
plants.
Yeah, then it's a
So
combination of a lot of different things, right?
yeah, so I think that's the way forward, but there will be a big need for nuclear power, as I believe, at least, because wind power, solar power are both intermittent power sources, and in order to expand those on a large scale, there will be a big need also for battery storage facilities, or
Right.
perhaps storage facilities in through media like hydrogen or methanol. So
Right.
those could make it possible. But I mean, expanding power generation at the rate that will be needed to fuel all vehicles within only 25 years will be a huge challenge. Elon Musk,
Definitely.
in a interview at the CodeCon 2021 conference, he said that in order to fuel all vehicles in the United States, power generation will need to double, and investments will be needed in all parts of power grid.
Yep.
So and doubling power generation means adding another 4,000 terawatt hours per year
Phew.
to the existing power generation. In the United States, 4,000 terawatt hours are generated. So doubling it will mean another 4,000 terawatt hours, which is the power generated by 360 nuclear reactors, or 1.2 million
Wow.
wind turbines. So
Wow,
that's a huge amount.
it's a huge amount. Do you think that, well, saying that, talking about from the infrastructure point of view, because we have two different infrastructure point of view. One is the electrical power, or the power that we will need to create in order to feed those vehicles. And the other one is, okay, how we can build these manufacturing facilities to manufacture all these electrical vehicles, right? So it's two
Yes.
different ways in order to merge in this industry. Do you see any activity or any government policy that is going in that direction to create something like that in the near future? Because it's huge.
Well, unfortunately, governments seem to have turned a blind eye to a big part of this transformation. They have focused on the vehicles and to some extent on chargers, but they
Right.
haven't realized what it means to change the entire transportation system to electric, and they haven't realized what it will mean for power generation, power consumption to fuel all those vehicles with electricity. So,
Right.
I mean, I've discussed with people working at automotive companies, or one of them said, say 15 years ago, when this development was at an early stage, he said that
Right.
the automotive companies can handle this change. Governments just need to make a few decisions to facilitate the transformation. And he didn't say anything at that point, 15 years ago, about the need to expand power generation or power infrastructure or anything like that. And then I met him in a meeting this year.
Okay.
10 months ago or something. And he said exactly the same thing. He didn't say anything, still didn't say anything about the need to expand power generation and or power infrastructure. So that is an indication of the blind spots that we are having here, where governments, automotive companies, and many others haven't really realized what it will take to change transportation systems on a large scale.
Right. But then how we will move in that direction? Are you
Yes,
here? Yeah. Yeah. So then how we
yes,
will move
Sam.
in that direction? So because what you're saying is I mean is shocking, right? We have all this green wave. We want to go in that direction. I've been in the aluminum industry for almost 15 years already, and we've been talking about how we can make the aluminum industry more efficient. We have better alloys. We are reducing the CO2 emissions with technology and different approaches of recycling more because we really want to push the EVs industry that is helping the aluminum industry to grow fast. And we have all these environmental regulations and everything. But then when we go and look at this position of the government, we don't understand why we are moving in this direction with like a solid plan in order to, get into those numbers. So what is the real deal?
Well, I'd say changes that have been going on for decades, like the one you describe in the aluminum industry,
Right.
are people know about them. They understand them. Taking another step is not very different from taking the last few steps we have behind us. So, but changes that we have no experience from are abstract. We can't relate to them, and like people in government or people in management positions at automotive companies, utilities, they don't realize always how different this change may be from other changes that they've experienced in the past. So the automotive industry has never had any reason to employ numbers of people who analyze how much oil will be needed. There's always
Right.
been enough oil, so they haven't had to care about the oil supply or
Right.
so. So they, in their minds, why should they care about the power supply? Well, they should, because the power supply the power demand for electric vehicles will increase like that, whereas the oil demand for transportation has increased like this over 100 years. But now we're
Right.
seeing like this type of increase, and we don't know how much electricity will be needed in different places, like the logistics area I just mentioned.
Right.
So
Right.
so that is the problem with the human mind, that we're not very good as human beings at understanding and
Yes.
getting our head around the abstract concepts like transformation to electric vehicles. We think it's like, well,
Like
the
any
growth
other industry, right?
like any other industrial growth we've experienced in the past, and we don't think that it's going to to be a big deal, but it will.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. It's going it is
I'm
definitely
here.
is yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely, definitely. No, I'm totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, the problem that I think the problem is we don't understand that even if it's a car, it's a totally different industry. It's not the same industry. And we need to understand that the approach is not just, oh, I will take oil out of the soil and it's done. No, we need to build the infrastructure before we build this, let's say, demand that we want to create for electrical vehicles. Now, saying that, now we are having here in the US, a new president, Trump, and how do you feel about it? Because Trump definitely will go for fracking, more oil. He will be more flexible on the regulation. So I don't think we will see this like with this powerful wave that we saw it before. And now, saying that, I was talking with a woman from the Fed, from the Federal Reserve, and she was talking about two different topics that for me was like shock. The first one is, as you just said, the electrical vehicles, not just the electrical vehicle, the car manufacturers being pushed to go into the electrical wave, right? So they need to create electrical vehicles no matter what. But I was talking to her, and I don't remember if it was Toyota or Chevrolet or Ford, but for every electrical vehicle that they are selling, they are losing $13,000 out of one vehicle. So they need to increase the price on the gas vehicles in order to the end consumer to support the operation. So for me, it's a little bit crazy. And then we were talking about China. 55% of the electrical vehicle manufacturing is in China. 77% of the cobalt mining for the electrical batteries and anodes and cathodes is in China. And 66% of the battery assembly is in China, but we are in Europe and in US pushing this industry very hard in order to compete against China. But looks to me that it's impossible for the world to build an electrical vehicle without China. So what is the position of the governments and this industry about it?
Well, the thing you mentioned about losing $13,000 on each vehicle, I think that's for Ford, but that's only probably because it's easier to see through the Ford structure, because they have organized electric vehicles in one separate business area, and for that reason, it's easier for them, or it can't be avoided that people see how much they lose on each vehicle. I suppose other car manufacturers are facing the same situation, except Tesla and some others. But most incumbents are probably losing money on each vehicle because they have made huge investments in the development, and they're not selling at the type of volumes that others have. The cash cows of their current petrol and diesel ranges they're not making money in the way the cash cows in their petrol and diesel model ranges are doing at present. So they're going to have to stop making their cash cows and selling their cash cows, and to start and to increase production and sales of the cars that are currently losing money. And Tesla is, of course, the leader in this industry in many ways. And in the United States and in Europe, they are the undisputed leader. But China is coming very strongly, and China has a few companies that are really pushing forward and that are really gaining volume in the Chinese market. And through that building of volume, they are building up a force that will make them very competitive also in the American and in the European market. I know President Trump is planning to establish tolls for imports. So that will be a big the payments for imports, and that may stop the Chinese to some extent in the United States. But in Europe, I'm sure that we are going to struggle. The automotive companies are going to struggle against both Tesla and against the Chinese companies, even though the Chinese are still on the threshold. They haven't been let into the market. Customers haven't yet started to buy their cars on a large scale. but I think it's only a matter of time until people start to do that, because the Chinese cars are so much less expensive, and they seem to offer relatively good quality. And we had
Yeah.
the same experience from Japanese cars a few decades ago, when Japanese cars were not seen as good as European or American cars. But as we all know, Japanese cars and Korean cars and so on
Hmm.
have grown tremendously over the past decades, and
Right.
Toyota is one of the biggest automotive companies on the planet, and so on. So I fear that it's inevitable that Chinese automotive manufacturers will take a big chunk of the market, at least in Europe, but
Yeah.
perhaps also in the United States. And I think the incumbents will experience something similar to what Detroit already has experienced. And Tesla may grow over in California and in other places, but the places where, both here in Europe, where the incumbents are strong and where they have big manufacturing facilities, and in the United States, where the incumbent automotive companies are still big employers, they will suffer in different ways, because electric vehicles, whichever way you look at them, they require much fewer man hours for parts production and assembly. So, say 40% fewer man hours for parts production and assembly for an electric car. So, how if we change to electric vehicles, even if they are produced in Europe, in the United States, much fewer people will be employed making them.
Right.
But this change will also generate a lot of new job opportunities that
Definitely.
governments haven't yet realized, like the ones we've talked about, like power infrastructure, power plants, and so on. And some of these things are already growing dramatically, but there's a big need for investments in power, in power grids, and so on, that are not taken care of at present. So that may be I mean, there's a big need for training. There's a big need for manpower there, but no one is doing anything about it. And that may
Right.
be a, 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 a thing that may stop or halt some of this development.
Exactly, exactly, because from the government incentive point of view, I mean, we are seeing some of those incentives, right? But as I was talking about Trump, for example, he was talking about the tariff that he will put on the Chinese vehicles, but also because we are having these Chinese companies going into Mexico in order not to send from directly from China, so they can avoid this tariff, right? But Trump just said that he will put 25% tariff on everything that is coming from Mexico, or he will do it, but maybe he will not do it. He will not do it if Mexico stop like moving people from Mexico to the border and stop drug dealing from the border to the US. Then I don't think this will stop as easy as they are, just talking about. But let's say that we have this green wave, we have the government incentives. But do you think that this industry will slow down a little bit with the Trump getting into this new administration?
Well, I'm not familiar enough with U.S. politics,
Okay.
so I can't really say. But well, looking at it from the European perspective, it looks as if that is likely to happen.
Right.
I don't know, but I mean, let's put it like this: if we want the change to electric vehicles to continue and to speed up, as governments have said they will, it will. There will have to be big investments to be made, and big support, large scale support, and large scale change programs in different
Right.
areas. And I don't think President Trump will make those decisions and start those types of programs. So I think it's unlikely that this change will gain momentum or increase its momentum in
Right.
the way it has done over the past 5-10 years in the States, and also here in Europe. And with the let's say lack of insight among key decision makers here in Europe, I don't think the plans of the EU are going to be realized as rapidly as the EU has indicated so far either.
Right, right. And this take me to the role of the, electrification into the sustainability point of view. And I know you can talk about it because at the end this is what we are seeing right now, this new wave is getting us into the sustainability point of view of every industry. How is this role of electrification getting into the sustainability point of view?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure, sure. Yeah. I just
It
lost you
didn't
for a
come
second.
through correctly.
Right. Yeah. So I was asking about the role of electrification into the sustainability point of view. So how do you see that role coming more and more important from the point of view of sustainability? Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, hello. We're
Can you hear
having
me
a
now?
problem with the connection. Yes,
Yeah. Sorry
I can
about
hear
that.
you.
Okay. So I was asking about the role of the electrification strategies into the sustainability point of view because at the end is what we are seeing right now, right? So what is the role of the electrification on the of these strategies that we will see on the sustainability point of?
Ah, I lost it again. I don't know if the problem is on my side or on yours. I could try sitting in another part of our.
Hello.
Now,
Oh, okay. Now I
hello.
think it's better.
Okay.
Good. So what I was asking is about the role of the electrification strategies into the sustainability point of view. How do you see that? Can you hear me? I think we're having some issues right now.
Yeah, I can try to move to another part of our house to see if it works better there, in case it's on
Okay.
my side. Just a sec.
Sure, no problem.
Is it better here?
Okay, I can hear you
Hello?
perfectly. Can you?
Okay.
Now it's better. Okay, we're back. Good.
Yes.
Some technical issues. So what I was talking about is about the role of the electrification strategy from the point of view of the sustainability.
Yes, I think electrification is a very important part of sustainability because it's the area of sustainability that has made the most progress so far.
Hmm.
I mean, I've written an entire book about the circular economy and
Right.
the role of the circular economy as a vehicle to promote sustainability. But it's called the circular business models, and but I realize that in all of those areas, or in neither of those areas, progress has come as far as in the case of electromobility. So
Right.
so with electric vehicles, we can actually see that the change would be possible. And we can calculate the amount of resources that will be needed. We can roughly calculate the amount of investment needed, like
Hmm.
a nuclear reactor
Right.
requires an investment of $6 to $9 billion, for example, and we can
Right.
calculate other things. And governments have started to calculate other aspects of it, like and so on. But in other areas of sustainability, development hasn't come as far, and we can't, for example, as easily. I can't envision how much resources would be needed to change to renewable plastics, or
Right.
imagine the type of production systems and distribution systems or recycling systems that would be needed in order for all plastics to change from fossil plastics
Right.
to renewable biological plastics. So and you can take any area of sustainability, and you find that even if electromobility is at an early stage, other areas are in general at a much earlier stage than electric cars and electric trucks. So we have the solutions there, and we can make electric vehicles an example of, well, type of success case,
Right.
and we can learn from that in other for other types of changes that we are planning to do to move to a sustainable society.
Right. So, from the point of view of the circular economy and the sustainable models that the industry needs to have, what are those approaches? Because sustainable models are not easy to understand, right? So, how the industry needs to approach in a different, different industries, how they can approach into this direction.
Well, from my point of view, sustainability ideas have to a very large extent been developed by
Right.
sustainability experts, people
Hmm.
with a background from biology or from chemistry or from the natural sciences. But there very few people, very few business people and people with experience from large scale change in industries or large scale change in companies
Hmm.
have been engaged in the planning and in the preparations and in the vision, developing the visions of sustainability. So a lot of assumptions have been made, like when Greta Thunberg says more needs to be done, more
Right.
money needs to be invested, and or governments need to do more. But very little has been done in the way of analyzing what is that exactly that needs to be done, which steps will need to be taken. And if I say that there's no program behind the change to electric vehicles, we don't know power generation, how much power generation will have to be expanded, how much power grids need to be expanded, and so on. There's even less of that in other
Right.
areas related to the circular economy. So we know that more needs to be done, but we don't have a clue, most of us, about what exactly it is that
Right.
needs to be done. Who needs to invest money? What do they need to invest in? What types of activities will be needed to achieve this? At what stage are we in this process? And in the most cases, we are in the stage of small scale pilot testing of new concepts.
Right. So, but saying that, what is the circular economy strategy on business when we want to get into that direction, but we have no idea? We will figure it out in some point, right? And we need to
Yes.
develop the systems, and we need to do some research and experimentation. But from the circular economy point of view, what should be the approach?
Well, the most important areas for change will have to be prioritized, and plans will need to be made where we can see exactly what needs to be done and who will need to do it. At present, it's as if if we look at the change to a circular economy or the change to sustainable society,
Mhm.
it's as if you'd try to build a house without having drawings, and you without
Right.
having a project plan. Like someone is working on the walls of one house over there. Someone else is working on the roof of a house over there. Someone else is laying the foundation for a third house over there. But there's no coordination of
Right.
activities, and there's
Right.
no house about to no entire house about to be built or about to be finished. So everyone's doing whatever they like, and there's no system thinking, no coordination, no common view of what's going to be achieved.
Right. But who needs to be that leader that can put everyone together in order to have a really good communication and push everyone in the same direction? Because at the end, what we have is several industries trying to get into the path, but I think, and I believe, and I don't know if it's Tesla or Elon Musk, and now that he is jumping into the Trump administration to control the expenses on the government, but who can be that leader that can put everything together to have this really nice communication and make it happen?
The only player that has even a chance of taking that role is the government. And if Donald Trump doesn't want to take it, there's no one else in the United States that could do it. In Europe, we have in each country one government,
Right.
and we also have the EU that has some power, and both of those, all of those, need to take the lead in different ways. That will have to be, but so the overall coordination needs to be done, I think, at a political level. But governments don't need to do everything. Like
Oh,
if
definitely.
if you buy a house, you hire a contractor to build it. But the contractor doesn't do everything himself. He sees like what's need to be done. He makes a plan. He gets drawings, and he gets the building material. He
Right.
says, "Let's lay the foundation first. You do that, etc." But someone needs to do that coordination, like NASA did in with the Apollo program and
Right.
the ensuing space programs. So it's like it's not like some planned economy idea. It's common sense that if you have a project, and a lot of things need to be done. Someone needs to make sure that everything needed will be done by someone.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree that it's a cooperation between everyone that is involved in different industries. What are those risks that we can have if we don't meet these sustainable goals?
Well, apparently it seems as if we're in big trouble, and we're going to be in even bigger trouble if we don't manage this change. But also, we need to realize that we can't approach this change in the way that we are doing at present. We can't do little bit here, little bit there, and try to do everything at once. We need to focus resources in the most highly prioritized areas, get these large scale results in electromobility that we need to do to move on, and we need to select a few other areas, and we need to build that plan and see what can we do first, what do we need to do first, and in what order should we do these different changes, because some changes we simply don't have resources to approach all changes at the same time. So some changes will have to wait, and some changes will have to be get a higher priority, so that we achieve large scale results and we can move on.
Right. That makes sense. And from the economical point of view, the impact that we will have in that transition, how do you see that impact?
Well, if we do it right, it'll benefit us in many ways.
Right.
We can solve the global warming challenges, I believe. We can at least make much bigger impact than we're doing at present. We can do this in such a way that it contributes to building new industries, and it contributes to transforming existing industries in a systematic way. And if we do that, it will benefit us, and we will have more jobs, we will have more affluence, we will see more, have better lives in the future, and we create better lives for our children and grandchildren. If we fail to do this, I don't know how I can describe what's likely to happen. It will not be very good.
Yeah, not good at all. Well, Matt, to wrap up this episode that I really enjoyed, it was an amazing episode talking about different things related to the EV industries and what we will see in the future, and just thinking about this opportunity to have like a wireless chargers during, while you are just driving. It's just a crazy but a really innovative idea that I think is the future. So to wrap up this episode, what are those comments that you can tell us in order to move in the right direction?
It's I suppose the red thread through all this conversation has been the need for leadership, the need for organization, the need for focused projects that approach this changes in a systematic way. So it's about a more structured approach to electromobility, a more structured approach to sustainability, and the change to a more sustainable future.
Totally agree, 100% agree. So Matt, thank you so much for being here with us. I really enjoy it. Hopefully this is the first time of many other, touching base times that we can have to talk about this, because I think the industry will change fast. We will face a lot of challenges, of course, but we will figure it out, because I think we're smart people that we are working in order to make the world a better place, not just for us, but the new generations, right? So thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate it. Any other comment just to wrap up?
I thank you, Julio, for inviting me, and I really enjoyed being on your podcast, and I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to meeting you many times in the future, and being on your podcast again. So I'd like to say I hope we get this change right. We get the transformation on track, and governments realize we need to do it in more structured and planned way.
Definitely. So thank you so much.
Dirty Scrap Podcast.